I know, because two folks that I are near and dear to me that I love a lot, and I'm glad to have them on. Welcome, Rich. Welcome, Anthony, as well. Today we have Dr. Jen Quinn and Dr. Jen Polykranakis on here with us from Comstock School District. I'll let both of you introduce yourselves. We'll start off with Jen Quinn, and then we'll go over to Jen Poly, and obviously Rich and Anthony will chime in on this conversation with two amazing leaders that I love, admire, look up to, and appreciate being on here. Go ahead, Jen.
I'm Jen Quinn. I'm the superintendent at Comstock School District, best school district in the world. Al Pisano, Dr. Pisano, worked with us for quite a few years, and we miss him terribly. I am also really happy to be with Dr. Annunziato and Dr. Bernardo. I probably would not be a doctor if it wasn't for Dr. Annunziato, who made me meet with him every week until I did my work, because I was procrastinating terribly. And Dr. Bernardo was on my committee, so greatly appreciate the opportunity to be here today.
And Jen Poly?
Hi, I'm Jen Polykranakis. I am an assistant superintendent for instruction here in the Comstock School District on Long Island, New York. Both Jen and I have been in the Comstock School District for 15 years. We've been in multiple positions throughout the school district, I think really speaking to not only our dedication, but how wonderful a place it is to work. I too enjoyed working with Dr. Pisano when he was here, and I also enjoyed working with Dr. Annunziato when he was helping us with our problem-based learning. But I have a special shout out to Dr. Bernardo, who will always hold a very special place in my heart, because when I was a teacher, he was my assistant superintendent for curriculum and instruction, and gave me such a foundation, especially in systems thinking, that's helped my leadership years past.
Excellent, excellent. And Comstock is very unique. We talk about this off air, but you have a lot of powerful women, powerful personalities, women, wonderful women at the very top of the organization, not just both of you, but a few others there as well. So it's a very unique spot, because there are a lot of women in the places that women should be, in the upper levels of admin and education. So that's a really wonderful thing too. Anthony, Rich, anything to chime in before we start this conversation?
No, let's get it going.
The pre-conversation was so good. I hope we can capture some of those.
Exactly.
I think we will. So Jen Quinn, you want to lead about some of the things that we talked a little bit off air that we wanted to talk about in this COVID era. We were having a conversation about some of the challenges and some of the ways that you as a leader approach as a superintendent, and Jen Poly as well, how you approach things to make this seemingly ongoing transformation back and forth to school and online, hybrid, ever-changing every day. So how are you guys approaching that from a leadership perspective?
Well, the first thing that I think is really important to note is that we are both new in our positions. In fact, my whole cabinet is new, with the exception of our business person, who thank God for her. She's been in her position, but I became the superintendent in September. I followed a very popular superintendent, Dr. Rella, who was my mentor, and almost, or I'd have to say the closest thing. My dad died when I was young, so the closest thing I've had to a dad. But I took this position. Jen assumed her position. The other assistant superintendent for staff and student services, he moved up, all from within the district. So I knew we would be successful because we worked together really well. But we were just kind of finding our way, and then all of this happened. And the biggest challenge for me was getting people to trust me. The entire world is falling apart, and you have this person that, now is responsible for, making all of these decisions for you and your children. And, the most important thing to you is your children. And, it was a challenge. We decided, from the very beginning, that we were going to follow a transparent, ethical road. And, we did that. And we had meetings continuously. I made phone calls to my community and my staff pretty much daily. When the pandemic first started, our first goal was to keep people safe. We started a food bank, and we served throughout the pandemic. I mean, in the very beginning, we ran it from my house. People would come, our security guards volunteered their time, and they would come to my garage, and, we would deliver meals to people. And, when it was all said and done, I think we delivered 18,000 meals, some crazy amount of meals. We were able to keep people fed during the darkest days. We're very fortunate. And I think really, our community is not angry. Our teachers aren't angry. They may disagree with certain things, but, I'm not having people picket. I'm not having, hateful emails every day. People aren't calling News 12. And that's because I really believe they're part of the process. They may not like every piece, but, the conversation is there. They get to have, a say. When the governor turned around and said, you have to hold 3 meetings, we were like, 3 meetings? We've had, 15 meetings with our parents. They need to feel validated and heard. And if you do that, people are going to respect you and follow you.
And I think that's a key point when you bring it right back to trust. Trust is essential. It's crucial for any operation, organization to function productively. And our parents, I believe our parents know that we love our students. We love their children. We thank them all of the time for sharing them with us and letting us be part of their development and growth. And in doing so, like Jen had mentioned, we had already had so many Zoom meetings and Google Meets with our parents and teachers and students as well, that when a lot of information was coming out from other districts that was new to the community, ours was much more calm and comfortable because of the immediate transparency that occurred right from the start.
Does the fact, like, obviously I'm from Comstock, and those who don't know who are listening to this, through Joe Rella and you, Jen, and everybody else in the administration, it really has always been this transparent. You always said a flat level conversation where everybody can come in and talk. The culture there is a really healthy one because of that transparency. I've always felt that. And it seems like it's evolved even more under Jen, your leadership, and Jen Polly, your leadership as well. Has that transition been easier because of the existing culture, or has it just been just as challenging? Like, it doesn't matter as much? Like, what are your thoughts on how that existing culture has either helped, maybe even hindered in some ways, this transition in this new era that we're in now, the COVID era?
Now, I think it's definitely helped. I think the pre-existing relationships and camaraderie and good and bad things that we've been through together, and we've handled together. So going through, although this is a terrible pandemic, going through something so terrible, people knew they could reach out, letting us know whether they needed food or they needed clothing or they just needed help educationally, that someone was going to get back to them and get them what they need. We really focused this time using the pre-existing trust that we had built, and just to make sure all of Maslow's needs were met. Mm-hmm. We know we still have to do the academic, and we know we have to get to Bloom and Norman Webb's higher level of thinking, but if people's basic needs weren't met, none of the rest mattered.
Yeah, and I think for me, it was, following after somebody who was so beloved. Like if you didn't know Joe Rella, it would be hard to understand, but he was almost a superhero. He used to laugh and say that people would, he was like William Wallace, stories are made up about him, and his legend kind of grew. And, he was just an amazing person. And I'm kind of shy and quiet. And, and I think sometimes that perceives me as being mean, which I don't understand, because I don't think I'm mean, but, there are many times people are like, oh, she never smiles. And like, I think I think I smile a lot, but, when I'm in a large group, that's really hard for me. So I think when Joe left, people were kind of waiting to see who I was and what I was going to do. And, and then you had this piece that came so rapidly. And, I really think that following someone like that had set that culture made the world a difference, because then what happened really quickly, and I would read it, I read our community page. I shouldn't, but they would say, well, if Dr. Rella picked her, she must be good. If Dr. Rella wanted her to be here, she must be okay. And, when you were put to the test, and we were put to a test very quickly, people noticed, people realized, that, you talked about being a woman before, like I almost feel like a mom of the whole district, and like, these are my kids, and the teachers are my kids, and, now I'm super old, I'm my grandma. So, it's, you kind of feel like that nurturing responsibility to make everybody be okay. And, when the kids couldn't go to the prom, and, we're coming up with different ways to do things, but, I was in tears. You understand how people feel. These are milestones that are, being taken from them, that, it shouldn't be taken from them, that they have, they've earned those privileges, and, the whole world is just so scary and crazy right now.
Oh, go ahead, Rich.
Go ahead. Dan. Go ahead.
I think, from a leadership perspective, I think what really worked for your school district, and I think that in many ways, Comstock and the district leadership and definitely was somewhat atypical, because that trust existed before, that relationship between, and this is something I've been able just to see firsthand, the relationship between the administration and the union and the teachers and what have you. But I'm interested in hearing your thoughts on what you think the post-COVID district will look like. What things may remain, what things may change, what things may be put in place permanently. I'm just really interested in your thoughts about where you think things will go in terms of education after this pandemic is over.
And I just want to jump in. We have a mug jumped in back there. This gentleman, I'm not sure who that is that jumped. That's a good friend and colleague. Wonderful to have him on. Joe Caniglione, you want to just quickly introduce yourself, and you could join the conversation.
Sounds great. Hi, everyone. I'm Joe Caniglione. I'm one of the assistant superintendents here at Comstock also. Anthony, how are you?
Good, Joe. How are you?
Doing
Nice
well.
to see you.
And like all the leaders here, no sooner did they start, but COVID hit, right? So
Exactly.
it's amazing the hurdles that they've had to jump through, like many leaders. So back to Anthony's question.
And before you answer Anthony's question, again, I think for me, the most significant part was my team. I was the high school principal. Joe was the assistant principal. Jem was an elementary principal. But we were all very, very close. And then I was the assistant superintendent. I had Jen's job before I took my job, and she was the curriculum person. So we had this relationship, and I know that I have a team, and my principals, every one of my 18 people. We're a small district. We work very hard, but every person in my district has my back. And while we may not always agree, we're able to say we don't agree, and that's encouraged. Like we have very lengthy conversations about what's good, what's bad, and that's necessary, because when something's not going to work, you need to hear it from your team before you put it out there. And many times we'll have a conversation, and I'll think I'm right, and I'll tell them I think I'm right, but a lot of times then I'll defer to the group, because it's not one person, it's a group that has to put this in. So I have the best team ever, and I would not be able to do this without them. Even to the point where they'll check me and they're like, all right, you're acting a little crazy today. Why don't you go for a walk? I've walked more during this pandemic. In fact, I make Jen and I walk together every day. In fact, we thought our plan up walking. But back to answer your question, Anthony, to me, the biggest change is the use of technology and the differences that we're able to do. I don't see snow days happening anymore. I don't see, students are absent. They can continue to work from home. When staff is absent, that was my biggest fear, that we wouldn't be able to handle that. But it works really well, unless you're, terribly sick, they're logging onto the Google Classroom, and, they're doing their lessons with their students, and they're not missing instruction. Jen, you're the instructional person. So do you want to talk a little bit about some of the things that you see?
Sure. Something that I think will carry on moving forward post-COVID, hopefully soon, would be definitely the way we institute professional development and the manners in which we provide it, getting everyone together in a room of 100 and waiting for the last stragglers to come in and getting things done that way has, I think, gone way of the past when you could use Google Meets or Zoom or any kind of platform like that. Having everybody all in their comfort place where they could work and still, because we know people are, doing a couple things at once. That's just how we multitask. But I think it alleviates some of the stressors that traditional PD had provided before. So that I'm excited to continue. As far as curriculum goes, I think we will continue where we left off. We work hard to bring our students a strong problem-based learning approach to everything they do. And that comes with a lot of higher level thinking questions and diving deep into what it is they're learning, making sure the kids are learning authentic and relevant pieces of information based on their curriculum. So moving forward, being that we took all the paper away, I think that will just deepen our understanding, our participation, and our student engagement, solving problems through their curriculum that make sense to them.
Right. And even Jen, I'll just add with the PBL connection, our teachers are doing, I was very disheartened and thought that we weren't going to, we're going to have to kind of drop it. And they're not. They figured out how to take all of this and make it the ultimate PBL. So, our students are problem solving. Our high school students have a voice like never before. The high school principal is doing amazing things with his student leadership team. And, what's really nice about our district is anybody can be on these teams. We have a reopening committee. Any parent or teacher can join, and student. The leadership team at the high school, it's flexible, it's fluid. Kids can come in and join when they are able to do that. It's not just, 3 or 4 handpicked kids who are going to, echo what you're thinking, because, that's not leadership. That's just hearing what you want to hear.
Yeah, those are great points. And, I think you're right about PBL. This disruption with the pandemic probably fits very nicely with PBL if you think about it. And the fact that you've been doing this for so many years, in many ways, put your teachers ahead of the curve in terms of student engagement.
I do believe our teachers.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Jen.
I do believe our teachers were well ahead of the curve, even though they're still extremely hard on themselves for everything they do. Because as every teacher is, you want perfection for your kids. You've worked so hard on all of your lessons and want to implement everything the way you have. But now we just had to change our mindset and move toward what we do have now and how we could have the children experience learning and uncover learning rather than just getting through the curriculum.
Yeah.
So I want to get Rich's question, Anthony. We're coming.
Yeah, go right ahead.
Coming close to time, so we'll wrap up soon. And I definitely would love for you guys to come back on too, because it's a really great conversation. But Rich, your question, and then we'll wrap up for the podcast.
Yeah, actually, Anthony pretty much, I think, addressed the theme I was driving at. But as you all were talking and I was following, I mean, there's a million places we could go. I love that Jen P. brought up the Maslow piece that was occurring to me, and the relationships issues that that Jen Quinn brought up. And as someone else, I think it was you, Al, about how the culture is the fabric that all of this encompasses are all points we need to bring to the fore. And to some extent, they're platitudes. These are things that leaders talk to, but here we have true evidence of. So it affirms and substantiates that. I was thinking about the book that we have coming out. It's not a commercial. We have a book coming out called The Collective Mindset. And there's 4 or 5 pieces. I never remember them all. One is futuring, one is shared vision, one is collaborative leadership. Now, that's all I've been hearing. That bell has been ringing throughout this whole conversation. And Dr. Polly Chronakis mentioned back before we had started recording about how she had felt that they talk about post-COVID, that the evolution of the conversations, I'll use the dialogue word, the Senge word, the evolution of the dialogues among you all, and I guess Dr. Quinn also mentioned this too, went to a new height. And you would like to think that momentum will continue because the culture will let it continue. We'll let it be nurtured when this thing goes away, whenever that's going to be. That's more of a comment. If anybody wants to speak to that, that's fine, but that's just my observation.
You know, I for one am looking forward to the pandemic being over for that reason, and so many more.
Yes.
But I do. I believe that we are achieving great things. It goes back to, I don't know if you've heard the Bon Jovi song. And to me, when I saw it again, I cried. I'm crying a lot lately. But you know, when you can't do what you do what you can. And you know, we have really been faced with the ultimate challenge. You know, it seems like a nightmare sometimes that we're living through this. I would never have imagined it. You know, but our staff is doing everything that they possibly can to make it okay for our kids. And, you know, I know we didn't get to talk a whole lot about that, but to me, that's my biggest concern is I see my staff and, you know, they're making it good for kids. Our kids are doing really well. You know, they're figuring it out. But at what cost? You know, I see them struggling and it's outstanding. And no matter how many times we tell them how great it is, it's not what they used to do. It's not what they're used to. They feel like they're missing the mark. And, you know, we're working really hard with that social emotional piece for them because it's hard. And the same thing with my administrators. You know, I have principals who are, you know, tough people, you know, and they're crying. You know, the strongest, biggest man is crying that he's, you know, he's failing his kids, his community. And he's not. He's doing an amazing job. But I think we need to remember that at the end of the day, we're all people. And, you know, this has put a tremendous stress on us all emotionally. And, you know, we need to take care of each other.
Well said. Very well said.
Joe, any thoughts from you? I know you came in a little late. Thoughts from you, and then we'll get some final thoughts from Jen Polly as well.
No, I agree 100% with everyone. It's certainly, you know, unprecedented times, and you know, we're certainly making tremendous adjustments on a daily basis just to kind of roll with the punches, unfortunately. But all in all, you know, everybody here focuses on kids, and you know, that's the main goal, and it's working. You know, certainly not the way we wanted to, but it is working.
Which one to say something?
Yeah, Rich, you're good.
I just thought of something, and when I write the blog about this, I'll probably stick it into this as well. None of you are old enough to remember a book called Future Shock. Came out in, I think, 61 or 62. I was just a kid then too, but I haven't read it since.
Alvin Toffler.
Alvin Toffler and his wife, actually. And his point was back 60, so that's like 40 years, 60 years ago.
Yeah.
His point was that the world was changing so rapidly then that people were suffering a shock. And the shock was that they couldn't adapt to the rapidity of change. And as a result of that, he predicted crime and lawlessness, drug abuse, lots of things that we are certainly suffering around the world, if not around, certainly in the United States. And as Joe was talking a moment ago about how you folks have adjusted to it, I said to myself, so they're handling the future shock. Because the future shock was this pandemic, which this is an editorial opinion, we should have at least been academically prepared for. Not necessarily an epidemic, but a crisis of this kind of magnitude. Should have been, okay, flip the switch and go to plan B. None of us did that. I'm not yelling at you folks, I'm yelling for emphasis.
Yeah,
But
I just want to say though, we were pretty prepared. You know, Al was our tech person and he had us set up pretty well. And then when, you know, his successor followed, that was probably one of the easier parts for us. You know, we already had the Chromebooks, you know, home for most of our students. We just had to switch down to our younger students. I'm not telling you, you know, went great, but, you know, I was pleasantly surprised at how we were able to do that transition.
I wasn't talking about the tech infrastructure so much.
Okay.
It's so much as just the ability to go to the kind of curriculum instruction that you're talking to, which you've already spoken to in the project-based learning, project development you've been engaged with for a couple of years. Certainly stood you in stead. I'm talking in general terms, certainly not talking about ComSwag, but
yeah, no, you're right.
But what I also heard you say, Jen, Dr. Quinn, is that people are crying. I'm not smiling because I'm enjoying that they're crying. I'm smiling because that captures the future shock that all of us are enduring in one form or another. I was shaking my head last night thinking about how I'm going to stay in the house for the next 6 months. And it's up a wall. So we're all, we all have a lot of things to deal with. And the fact that you're striving as a group, as a leadership team, to acknowledge those relationship issues, not relationship issues, but that their false sense of inadequacy, and acknowledging the fact that they care so much that it's really putting more pressure on them, says much for your own empathy towards the folks whom you work with.
Yeah, mitigating and sort of channeling that pressure so that it's not an all at once thing too is really essential. I think you do it well in ComSWOG. People can't be inundated with all these changes all at once, and COVID has brought that on. So as leaders, it really is important to sort of scaffold that and say, all right, here's what we have to do first, here's what we have to do next, and make sure they're not like, oh my God, everything is coming at me at once. As leaders, but also dealing with the community and the parents as well. Jen, love to, Polly, want to hear your final thoughts. Jen, Quinn, we'll go back to you, and Joe as well.
Sure. Our district is kids first. And as an administrative team, like Jen said, we view our teachers as our kids, our class, our group that we need to maintain their social emotional well-being. Because if they're happy, then the children are happy. And if they're doing well and they're taking risks, because we encourage risk taking so much, if they're trying and making mistakes and teaching the kids all about those life skills that are truly needed, then the children are coming out with so much more than just the content. So kids first is really everybody in our district who is a learner, and we just strive to provide the best foundation for them all.
Wonderful. Joe, and then we'll go to Jen.
Yeah, I just want to touch basic one more time on what you're saying about the future shock. And then Jen had mentioned, there were some platforms like the technology platform, but I think having that platform, the PBL platform in place, so many other things that we already had in place made it that much easier for us to adjust as the time went on, because those were less stressful trying to implement because they already existed, and gave us a little bit more time to really focus on the emotional wellness of everybody within the district, which I have to say, Jen Polly has really developed a tremendous SEL program for the district. That's not just for students. It was for the adults as well. We were able to incorporate it there. So just really dealing with well-balanced individuals and being able to tap into every aspect of emotion for people to be successful was really part of the success for us, I think.
You created capacity.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Exactly.
And Jen, Quinn?
Just that I am very fortunate to be in the place that I'm at with the team that I have. Believe me, there are many days where I have thought about, my plan was to stay till I was 62. When I interviewed for the job, they're like, how long are you going to stay? And over the past, couple months, there are so many times where I've thought, I don't want to be here tomorrow. I just want to go somewhere in the world where I can just, not have to think about all these things. But then you realize that, everybody's put in a place for a reason. And, not to sound like corny or anything along those lines, but I feel like this is our reason. We all went into education because we want to help kids. We want to, make things better for them. And when better an opportunity than now. So on the days where I'm barely holding it together, and there are days, there's a lot of days, I know or I believe that I'm doing something to make things better for other people. And, that gives me the strength to get through. Personally, I'm suffering. I can't see my son. It's been almost a year, and, it's hard. I watch the kids not be able to do things that they should be able to do. And, it's heartbreaking, but, I try to focus on, kind of like what Mr. Rogers said, when things are bad, find the people that they're doing good and, the helpers. So for me, that's what I do. I try to focus on, the things that we're doing to make it better. And, I think that that's all you can do is make it when you can't do what you do, you do what you can. And
Very well.
that's what we're doing.
Well said.
Anthony, Rich, final quick thoughts, and then we'll obviously thank everybody for being here. But Rich, Anthony?
Good, Rich.
No, I just appreciate the opportunity to see some folks whom I admire very much. And so thrilled to hear some success stories in a time that's been difficult for everybody.
For me, if anybody could get through this and through it the way you have, it's the Comstock people. You guys are great people, dedicated, student-centered, and passionate, and creative and innovative. And those are adjectives I don't use readily or easily. I just think it's great. And I'm glad that we've had this conversation, because through this whole thing, my thoughts have gone back to your school district. When I see my own family members or my daughter who just started teaching, and see how they're dealing with the leadership and the struggles, and you guys were well in a good place. Not to say I wanted the pandemic to start, but you're in a good place to deal with it. And I think the things that made you successful before, the things that are making you successful now, are going to be the same things that will make you successful once this pandemic is over. So stay healthy and stay well, everyone.
Thank you.
And again, I can't thank the two of you who actually have trained. So if we're doing well, Rich and Anthony, a lot of it's on you. So much appreciated.
Thank you.
That's kind of you.
So thank you so much for being here. It really was a pleasure. I'd love to have you on again individually, as a group, moving forward in the new year. I think so insightful. Hopefully everyone understands and takes away who Comstock is, who they are, who the people are, how they support the community and staff, and how that has helped through this really challenging time. So I appreciate all of you and the fact you've been on. We'll also do an article with this. Share this, folks. Share away. And thank you again.